welcome to Taking It Off Topic. I am your host, Amanda, and I'm here with my special guest. And so thank you for joining me. Take a moment to introduce yourself to our listeners and we can dive in.
Hello, everyone. My name is LaTanya Cole, RN. I'm an RN by trade. I am a single mom of three daughters. I've been a nurse for 20 years, and I'm also a nurse in recovery, which is why we're here today to discuss a book that I wrote. It's like a memoir of my recovery journey. So it tells all about my childhood, my adulthood, my parenting, my downward spiral, and then how I emerged on top and was able to reclaim myself through it all.
A solid intro. And it's true.
Okay.
I mean, this book, when I heard about it on TikTok because we were in a room together in Shay Sia's room. And I was like, okay, I'll support. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I'll support. And then when I got it, I was like, this is a really good book. Because, oftentimes self-published books, you'd be like, okay. And you
Yeah.
start reading it like, what are we doing right here? But you did an excellent job. Like, I was really, really impressed by it. I enjoyed the read.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's my first book, and I didn't know if it was going to be good or not. But when I got to reading it back, I was like, man, this is really good. Let me share it with somebody.
It is. I mean, the cover is beautiful. The name of the book is Reclaiming Me, A Journey to Recovery and Redemption. And it's really good. It's really powerful. What I loved, well, I loved the whole book. Let me just say that. But in your dedication is where it started for me. And I was like, okay. And what I loved about it is, of course, you thank your family and you acknowledge your children. But what you also say is this journey is as much as theirs as it was yours. And I think oftentimes as parents or, we go through things and we know our children are experiencing it, but we don't really acknowledge that, right? Like this journey is also affecting you in some way. And I love that you were intentional in acknowledging that.
They're still young, so I don't even know if they realize that this was part of their journey as well right now, but I know that one day they will realize that. So I wanted to make sure that I put that in there for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And the fact that it happened while they were young, it kind of shapes their lives, right? So this is their normal
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. And so it gives them a perspective of like, wait a minute, this is my mom's journey and I was a part of it. And then how do I differentiate that from me or how do I, grow and change from that? So I love that you did that.
Right.
So we're gonna dive in and I'm just gonna, well, yeah, let's just dive in because I want to read a couple quotes from the book, of course, leading to some questions that I had. When reading this, like, okay, when you start and you're telling us about, just growing up and that sense of just not having those hard conversations, right? Not really talking. And I think that's common in our community, the Black community. I can't speak for other communities because I know the reason for this podcast and the motivation behind me starting this podcast was because of that, right? We don't have those conversations, and you oftentimes find yourself just bundling through and
Right.
feeling like you're the only one, that sense of isolation. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, if we start having conversations, at least when people are going through things, they know they're not alone. They know that someone has overcome it, someone has been through it, and it gives a little sense of hope. When those seasons come and life is challenging, you do feel isolated because no one shows you the bad
Yes.
parts of their life. Most people don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You only see the good stuff. And it's like, no, people are struggling and people are, making their way, but they're just not telling their story.
Exactly. 100%.
So you were saying growing up, you guys never had those conversations about sex, about drugs and alcohol, the conversation we don't be having, honestly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so you said here in the book, as an adult, my mom admitted that she never had those hard conversations with me about drugs, alcohol, or even sex. In her mind, my maturity was a shield against danger of the world, but that wasn't necessarily true. Intelligence and maturity are not the same thing. And I was like, that is so true because we oftentimes will be like, oh, that kid is very mature. They can handle different situations, but it's like maturity and intelligence aren't the same thing at all.
Yeah, exactly. There's a thing like you can be book smart and you can also be street smart. So as a 45-year-old woman, I hate to say that I wasn't street smart. It just doesn't sound right coming from my mouth, but I was very highly intelligent as far as when it came to books and things like that. Not really sure if I had the street smarts that I needed to have at such a young age.
Hmm.
So I don't think that my mom had those conversations with me because I think as a parent, you want to keep your children for as long as you can, and you kind of want to shield them from the bad parts of the world, so you just don't have those conversations. And I think that my mom did the best that she could, but she just wanted to keep me as innocent as I was. And
Yeah.
I think that had she had those tough conversations about, look, people are going to tell you whatever they feel like they need to tell you to take something from you. If
Mm-hmm.
she had said that to me repeatedly over and over again, then maybe some of that would have registered in my head. And also, when it comes to addiction and things like that, like drugs, we all know that drugs are bad. But what we don't talk to our kids about is sometimes things that are bad actually feel good.
That part. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have to, I think now as a parent, what I do, and this is my 16-year-old because I only have my 16-year-old at home now. So I'm able to give her the best parenting that I feel like I can give. So now with my 16-year-old, I talk to her about how good people can be, but also how bad people can be. She's very beautiful. So I will tell her every day that people, you have to gain trust from these people in order to trust what they say. You can't just trust everything from the beginning. And then I also tell her that these bad decisions may feel good at the time, but it's only going to hurt you in the end.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like if you keep having these conversations with your children, then one day when they do experience these things, they'll be like, oh, yeah, my mom warned me about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely necessary to have those tough conversations with your children.
Yeah, I tell my son all the time, trust is earned, right? Like you
Yes.
don't just just give it all in. Like, okay, it's like,
We're so willing to give our trust away so
it's like,
easily,
no, like
especially
people need
when
to
we're
earn
young.
that. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Hmm.
then you were saying how your brother is like this rock star athlete, and so you get the fruits of that being connected to him, right?
Hmm.
So you
Hmm.
go off to college. When you went to college and you got never had to talk about contraceptives, relationships, and you were truly naive, kind of navigating yourself through that college experience, right? And when you go off to college at 18, 17, some people, it's really, if you haven't had those conversations, it's like it's mind
Serious.
blowing. You can get caught
Yes.
up real quick.
Yes. And I was definitely one of the ones that got caught up real quick.
It's easy to
Yes.
do because there's just so much coming at you so fast, right? And there's no
Hmm.
parental roadblocks. You can just do you.
Do you? That's exactly what I done. And let's see, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know which
Hmm.
one it is. But my first relationship in college, I did end up pregnant with my first daughter. Well,
Hmm.
my first real relationship, my first time losing my virginity, and then I had a daughter as a result of that. So
Was that your freshman year?
yes.
Wow, that's a lot. And you
Mhm.
said in here, when you start talking about the relationships, with your children's fathers, that's where my heart broke. Yeah. Wait, before I get there, let me ask you one question.
Okay.
So, what role do you think, now looking back, what role do you think having the lack of tools to process just what you were going to be navigating in college, like not having those tools, do you think they kind of set you up or kind of put you in a position where you were easily kind of falling into things just going into college as a 18-year-old freshman?
Well, I think that my lack of knowledge and then all the responsibilities that I had as a young adult, I think it kind of just created a perfect storm
Mm,
for me to easily be drawn into something that wasn't healthy for me.
yeah.
Just because I didn't. I was never talked to about these things. I was never talked to about drugs. And it's crazy because I come from a family of addicts,
Oh.
which I have learned now, and it took me going into treatment to learn that. But we never sit down and have these conversations about drugs and their
Mhm.
impacts on our health and on our lives and stuff like that. So had I been equipped with those tools,
Yeah.
then maybe I would have made some different decisions, or
Yeah.
maybe I would have had tried different coping mechanisms or things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good. So that's really good. That's interesting. So did you know that there were people who had drug addiction or drug problems in your home, or was it or in your family, or was it never discussed?
You know, I feel like it's just something that's normal in the Black community where people are using drugs and drinking and stuff like all the time. So for me, I didn't look at it as being abnormal. And I
Mm-hmm.
never really thought anything about addiction at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
But after I went into treatment, I realized, gosh, we're all addicts, the
Yeah.
whole family.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good
So,
though, that you were able to see that. You wrote about your first relationship with your daughter's father and when it broke apart, when you guys broke up, and you said, the love I thought was solid wasn't enough to carry the weight of our responsibility, and eventually our relationship fell apart. For the first few years, my daughter's father was around. He was there for the early years. He disappeared from her life completely. To this day, I still don't know why. There was no explanation, no goodbye, just silence. And my heart broke because I was just like, it's heavy. That sense
it's,
of abandonment, right? Not only for your child, but for yourself. And as a mom, not being able to explain it.
yes.
You know what I mean? Like that, my heart was broken.
Yeah, it's very heavy. I didn't know that part was going to be so heavy, but it is very heavy for me to carry that weight and to carry it for my daughter because she's such
Right.
an amazing person. She doesn't deserve for anybody to abandon her the way that her father did abandon her. And I know sometimes kids may look at you like, why? They may think it's your fault that
Mm-hmm.
their father is not around and stuff like that. So I always wanted a reason that I could tell her, but I never had anything. He never gave me anything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so crazy how some men, not all men, but they're able to just abandon their children like that.
Yeah, yeah. That just it broke my heart. I was like, man. And then you talk about, like basically you graduate from your undergrad, and it's like I gotta get a job, I gotta be able to support this baby, I gotta be able to do all these things. And I remember I had my son at 24.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had was in college and stopped going. And then when I had him, my dad was like, if you're gonna go back, this is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like go back now while he's small and he doesn't need you as much because when he's older, he's going to need you to be present. And so I had that sense of like, I need to get my life in order and get things in place because I got to take care of this baby. And his dad and I were together, but it was still like, I need to be able to support him too. And so that pressure, right? That comes that
Mm-hmm.
pressure of responsibility and
Mm-hmm.
that sense of like, I got to show up.
Yep.
I
And
got to show
ironically, it was my dad too that
up.
talked me into going to school and stuff too. I was just living at home with my parents with this one baby or whatever. And I was like, I can't keep on depending on my parents like that. So I was like, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna figure something out. So I was gonna go to school for medical assistant. And my dad was in the military before, and my dad was like, if you're gonna be a medical assistant, you might as well be a nurse. And I was like, okay, so let me try nursing school. So yeah, it's my daddy that kind of sowed that seed for me to go ahead and get me a
Mm-hmm.
career going.
Mm-hmm. And then you get your career going, you get accepted into your program, and bam, here
Damn.
comes baby number two and
Mm-hmm.
another failed relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you got two. You graduate, you got your two babies, and then you got your job, and bam, baby number three
Baby
comes.
number three. Yeah, it's like Amanda, it's like my family is just like a baby making family. When I was young, I said all the time that I didn't want children. I say that all the time. I'm so grateful that I do have children. But when I was young, I said all the time that I didn't want children. I was like, I got all of these cousins. They all got 5 kids apiece. 5 kids apiece. So I was like, I'm not gonna be one of those that have 5 kids apiece. But hey, I had
Yeah.
three.
It
It's
was
just
interesting though that each pregnancy was at a pivoting point in your life, right? Like you are now in college and this happens. You start this program for nursing and then here it goes again. And then you got the job and then here and I was just like at those key points in her life where she's at that crossroad of the cusp of something good or something, and it's like, oh, you get kind of step two forward, two steps back. What role did the lack of tools and then the lack of time to process the abandonments of your children's fathers, along with the pressures of being a single mom, play in creating that perfect storm, right? That perfect environment that when that sense of relief, quote unquote, presents itself,
Mhm.
you're willing to take it or you're willing to try it.
Yeah. I think that once I became a mom, especially with multiple children, I felt like I could no longer be weak. I could no longer be vulnerable. I had to go, go, go. I had to work two
Hmm.
jobs. I had to take care of all of the extracurricular activities that my kids were going through. I didn't have time to sit down and process no emotions. I didn't even know that these abandonment issues affected me until later in life. So I was just going, 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 like just like I had a battery pack in my back or something like that, because that's what you have to do, or that's what I felt like I had to do as a mom. Like I couldn't let my children down. I couldn't stop. I had to just go, go, go all the time. When you do like that and you don't ever process your emotions, it just kind of builds up. It builds up
Hmm.
and it leaves you empty. And I
Yeah.
think that that's what happened to me. I was just left empty.
Yeah. And that's what you say. You said I was craving connection and a place to rest my heart. But time and time, I was left alone, wondering if I ever was enough. The loneliness gnawed at me. I was pouring everything into my girls, trying to be the perfect mother, but no one was pouring anything back into me. I felt invisible, like my needs didn't matter. And I was like, damn. And I can relate to that, right? As a
Of
mom,
course.
you just be grinding and
Mhm.
you don't even have time to think about it, right?
And
I remember,
we're labeled by our parenting. Like, oh, she's such a good mom. Like she take care of her kids, this and this and that. But what is she outside of her motherhood? Like we're labeled on how much we do for our children.
yeah, that's true. And it can be exhausting.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I can remember coming home, cooking, putting my son in the tub, and still having my lanyard from work hanging around my
Yes,
neck. You know what I mean? It's like, girl,
yes,
you ain't take the
yes.
lanyard
Or falling asleep with fully dressed with your scrubs on, like many
off. Like,
times.
okay. But now, so as we go into your addiction, it started pretty common on how it starts. Like, when I watch documentaries about people who have fallen into addiction, especially with opioids, it starts with painkillers, right? They've had a surgery or they've, had some type of medical procedure, and then it just kind of leads into an addiction. It seems
Right.
almost, subtle, a
Hmm.
very subtle attraction. Can you even pinpoint like when it went from this is for my pain to this is like a relief?
Well, for me, I cannot pinpoint exactly where it started. And I think that I said that in my book. I cannot pinpoint the exact place where it started, but I do know that when I was in my 20s, I did have like a lot of dental work done. So I was always prescribed painkillers. And then also in my 20s, and I did not mention this in the book because it's an ongoing thing. Also in my 20s, I was diagnosed with lupus as well.
Mm,
And so there were periods in my life where I had a lot of dental work done, but then I also had like a lot of aches and pains and stuff like that. So I was always prescribed narcotics because that was the thing. I think it's harder now to get a prescription for narcotics. I hope it is, but I think back then it wasn't hard to get a prescription for narcotics. And these narcotics, they just give you a sense of euphoria. And if you're so busy and so down and out, and you feel that sense of euphoria, you're like, man, I think I need this, even when you don't need it.
hmm. Because like part of me was like, you're a nurse,
Hmm.
right? Like you know better. But then I guess if it's subtle and you can't really, it's not like you're like at this point, I started abusing this,
Hmm.
right? Like it was a subtle process. And so, because I just kept like thinking to myself, like, you're a nurse, you know the dangers of opioids.
Hmm. Hmm.
But maybe back then it wasn't as like the education of it wasn't as profound as it is now.
Yeah, I don't think people definitely were not talking about opioid addiction as much as they are talking now, and that has everything to do with how many people we have lost from it now, and how many people we continue to lose from opioid addiction. So people weren't really talking about. I mean, it didn't even say on the bottle that this could cause addiction or anything like that. It basically just says it just causes drowsiness. So,
Mm,
and I never, like I said, I never knew that I came from an addictive family. I never knew that I had an addictive personality. So I just, at the moment, I just thought that it was just something that I could just put down when I wanted to.
mm-hmm. That's good. So at the height of your addiction, how many pills were you taking?
Oh,
Approximately.
that's a good question. And that question, I'm very happy that I do save things in my phone. Like I save so many things because my memory. So I have to go back and look at some things. And I was able to pull up. There's this app called I Am Sober that anybody that's sober can use, and they can actually put in like their sobriety date, and then not only can you put in your sobriety date, but you can also put in the amount that you were spending per day on the drugs that you were taking. And so when I signed up for that app, and so when I look on the app, it says that I was spending $50 a day on pills, $50 a day on pills. And so I guess that would be two two pills a day, but these are fentanyl, man-made fentanyl tablets, so two a day, I guess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we could go deeper into that because the fentanyl pills are like man-made. And so most people, well, I'm sure people that are in the height of their addiction, they actually take like the whole pill. But for me, I was able to like split these pills and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Because in my mind, I'm like, two pills, that don't sound like like a
No,
lot, but
it's a heavy dose.
so okay.
And fentanyl is a very, very, very strong medication that's stronger than heroin. If you know anything about like heroin and addiction and stuff like that, it's stronger than that.
Yeah, because in the book you write about like that balancing act of like not taking too much because then you would be like sick and just a mess, or like trying to find that balance. And I'm like, if this is a pill, then how do you even, it's just a guessing game every time that you don't
Yeah,
OD or that you don't, you know what I mean?
especially with it being man-made and you don't know if it's a bad batch or if it's like you just don't know. You
Mm-hmm.
just don't know.
So I thought it was interesting that you said that at your worst, so like at the height of your usage, that no one was suspicious. Now looking back and having these conversations with your family, were they thinking like something was off and they just kind of overlooked it, or were they truly missing and didn't see?
This is something that I have talked to my family about before, not so much my friends. And I think that my friends probably are like, oh, I knew it after they read the book. They probably
Mm,
like, oh, I probably had some kind of idea after they read the book. However, so here's the thing. Like when I was in the height of my addiction, I was 128 pounds. And that is very frail. So I was small, and the only person that ever mentioned anything about my weight was my oldest daughter. And she's like, Mom, you are very thin. Like, are you eating? Like, what is going on? But she told me that she just thought that I was sick
so
because
had you been bigger or were you heavier and then got
140.
down to 128?
140 is about my average, what my average weight used to be. Of course, it's more now, but what my average weight has always been is about 145.
Okay.
But yeah, she would just be like, Mom, you're thin. But I was always the type of person where if I was going through something, whether it be mentally or physically or something with my health, like I always kept it to myself. So my oldest daughter kind of just thought that maybe I was sick and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't saying anything about that. But no, she had no idea of drug addiction. Of course, my younger daughters, they know nothing about drug addiction. My mom, on the other hand, she knew. She never said anything to me. She had her suspicions. She told
Mm,
me that she knew, and she told me that she knew because of the company that I kept.
mm-hmm.
Because my friend that I write about in the book, like my mom knew what she was into,
Okay.
and we hung out together. So she kind of assumed because of the company that I was with, but she said she didn't want to believe it and she couldn't say anything about it because she just was like, not my
Not my
baby.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, not my baby.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think anybody else was aware, or if they were aware, they didn't say anything. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
say anything.
Mm-hmm. So the turning point was you failed a drug test at work,
Mhm.
right? But so how long had you been using before that failed drug test happened?
So in my book, the failed drug test was in 2020. And this is another one of those situations where I don't remember exactly when, but I have all of these photos that I can go back to and that kind of joggle my memory on where
Mm-hmm.
I was in my life and what I was doing in my life. So I pinpoint my opioid use starting about 2016. And in
Mm-hmm.
20, yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
2016, yes.
Thank God you're still here. Now
I
I
know.
have perspective of I'm thinking this was like a couple years or something like that.
I'm gonna give you a breakdown. My opioid use, it started as Lortab, Percocet, and things like that. So Lortab probably in 2016, and I wrote this down. And then in 2018 was when I was actually failed my first drug test. Because
Mm-hmm.
in my book, the one that got me to rehab was my second drug test.
Okay.
So in 2018 was when I failed my first drug test. And so I contacted TIMPAP, which is the professional nursing, the people that basically help nurses that are in recovery keep their nursing license.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2018 was when I contacted them to put me like on a recovery plan and things like that, where I would get drug tested random. So we could work as a nurse as long as we were willing to do random drug tests. So we had to check in every single morning to see if we had to go and get a drug test and things like that. So I was in that program for a couple of years. And then in March of 2020, I failed a second drug test.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a while. It was a while. I think that from 2016 to 2019 or so, I was very, highly functioning, but it was just like when the fentanyl came along, I was no longer able to, I had no control over my
Yeah. You said
addiction.
it was a monster in the book.
Yeah, I
It's like
had no
feeding the
control over
monster.
my addiction once we got to fentanyl, and I
Mm-hmm.
really feel for people that actually are addicted to fentanyl right now in the moment because I know how I was and it just takes over your life.
Yeah. So you failed this drug test. How do you break the news to your family?
Yeah, that's another thing. I was very vague, the shame and the guilt and all of that. I was still walking and living in shame.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I had two parents that loved me, that would do anything for me. And so I kind of was just very vague, like, hey, if I needed to go away for 30 days, would y'all stay at my house and help out with my kids? And of course, they both said for sure, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my plan was to have my parents stay at my house for 2 weeks. Well, my dad stay here for 2 weeks and my mom stay for 2 weeks, just to be with my kids. And I just told them that I was going into rehab because this is something that I had to do for TIMPAP because
Mm-hmm.
I had failed that drug test, but I didn't go into deep detail about it.
Yeah.
That's how I broke the news to my parents. Very, very vague.
And
Very
then
vague.
how old were your girls at this time?
So in 2020, my oldest daughter was 20, and
Okay.
then my middle daughter was 15, and I guess my youngest daughter was like 11.
Okay. Were they all still at home though?
No, my oldest daughter was in college, so
Okay.
she's very, very mature and very responsible. So I left her with the responsibility of making sure that she paid like the light bill and stuff like that. I left my cards and stuff with her, and my 15-year-old and my 11-year-old were home with my parents. And my 15-year-old knew that I was going into treatment. My 11-year-old, she didn't really know nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just knew I was gonna be gone for a while.
Yeah. That's hard,
Yeah.
right? Because and that guilt and shame will keep you and will keep you bound, right? That guilt and shame will keep you quiet.
Yes.
It will keep you vague. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that's a real thing. Guilt and
Yeah, I
shame.
was bound for a long time. And I knew that it was what I needed to do. And in my book, I even said to my friend, like, will you go to rehab with me? Like I was contemplating this because I knew that that was my only way out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I couldn't do it on my own. I tried. And I also found like pictures of my phone when I tried. Like I got screenshots of how do you taper off opioids and stuff like that. So I really, really tried to do it on my own, but I knew that I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was not successful. Just imagine carrying all of that weight. You can't tell anybody what you're going through. So it was just very tough. It was very
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. And the beauty of this book, of course, you take us through your rehab process, but you wrote it. Unbeknownst to you, you were writing it while you were in rehab. And I was like, look at God. You know what I mean? Like you were
Mm-hmm.
journaling, and through that process comes this book. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, that's powerful. That's really powerful to me that, the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit or you had the foresight to just start journaling your experience through the detox and through the treatment program. Yeah, I thought that was phenomenal because now we have this book.
Yeah, had no idea it was gonna turn into a book, but just knew that I wanted to document everything and I wanted to look back at it one day for, listen, this is why you don't want to go through this again. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And then, you tell us, you talk about the rehab and being in the home after, or was it like the recovery house or something like that? What
Yeah.
was it called? After you kind of go through the detox program, and you also talk about your was it your counselor, Maria?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just pulling those hard questions and those thought-provoking questions. And you said here, Maria had a way of seeing beyond the surface. During one of our most profound conversations, she spoke to me about the idea of being a quote unquote strong Black woman. She explained how in our community the title often becomes unspoken expectation, something we carry like a badge of honor. I wanted to know now, has your definition of a strong Black woman changed, or what it means to be a strong Black woman?
I think, oh yeah, for sure. I think that I've always been a strong Black woman, but now I realize that strength is not just pushing through and holding everything together. I feel like now it's more about balance and also mindfulness is very important. Like when we are going through the motions with our kids, whether it be baseball, basketball, softball, tennis, soccer, whatever, just be mindful and be in the moment and just enjoy these times with your kids. And I think for a long time, I was just focused on what's next, what I got to accomplish next, what bills I got
Mm-hmm.
to pay, and things like that. So now I'm able to practice mindfulness. I'm able to balance my parenting with my own life and then my own relationships as well. So I think being a strong Black woman has more to do with balancing everything and still being able to have self care and to sit
Mm-hmm.
down and just have moments for yourself.
And another thing that I thought you did really well in the book was you provided insight, right? As far as you talked about how it's important to understand the effects that opioids have on your brain composition, and
Mm-hmm.
how that though you may go through detox and be clean and off the drugs, that long-term effect that it has on your brain,
Mm-hmm.
changes the way that you do things, right? It changes
Right.
the brain makeup. And so
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated that, right? You gave us a lot of education as well, in addition to telling your story, and that was needed.
Yeah, I think that it was very important for me to put that in there because a lot of people are just ignorant to the fact of addiction and what it actually does to the person. And I never want anybody to think that someone is actually choosing drugs over their family because no one would choose that. I just don't see that. And I just want everybody to realize that this is a serious illness. It's very hard and it does really, really affect your brain. It does, drugs do make a change in your brain and the way you feel like pleasure and things like that. So
Mhm.
without some people without these drugs, they're just numb. And there was definitely a time when I was just numb. So I know what that feels like to just wake up and just feel nothing.
Mm.
And it's because these drugs have caused like such a good pleasure feeling in your brain. And then when you take that away, your brain is like, I don't work anymore. So
Mm,
I think it's important for everybody to know like the psychological effects that drugs have on the addict's brain, and also that the brain is so amazing that it can recover. It can recover if you do the right amount of work and with the right amount of drugs and treatment or therapy and things like that, it can recover.
that's good. Now, do you have any lasting effects, or and if so, how do you manage them?
I think for me, like my lasting effects basically is just my memory. I have like blocks of time that I don't remember. Like I'm an avid, like I like to watch shows, like full seasons and stuff like that. And there are some shows that I know I've watched like the full season, but while I was in active addiction, I don't even remember what happened on the show. And there's things that have happened in life that I kind of have forgotten about. So just my memory during that time is basically gone. And then of course what I talked about like with my dental stuff. I have good teeth now, but because I pay for them, but when you're in active addiction, you forget the simple things and you just don't take care of yourself the way that you should. The dental was a big thing for me. So coming out of treatment, it was definitely something that I wanted to fix. So I would just say my dental work and then
Mhm.
my memory.
And did it have an effect on your lupus? Like, did it cause more flare-ups since you had an autoimmune
Well,
as
so
well?
here's the thing with lupus, and I didn't really talk about lupus in the book because I'm not like I was diagnosed with lupus in when I was in my 20s, and then I went like on a long either I was misdiagnosed or I went on a long remission. If you know anything about lupus, it can affect any part of your body, mainly your joints and things like that. So in hindsight, I feel like while I was using, I may have had flare-ups of lupus, but I'm not sure because
Hmm.
I don't know if my brain was tricking me into thinking that I was in pain or if I was really in pain. And so now in 2025, I've gotten to a point where I'm in pain again. So I'm going through like the doctor's visits and stuff like that to see if I actually really have a form of lupus.
Hmm. Hmm. So now, being a recovering addict of these
Mm-hmm.
opioids, when you now have pain, like you're having pain,
Mm-hmm.
do you not take, are you like, give me something holistic? Like I'm
Yes.
not even about to dabble in this.
And that is a great question. A lot of people in recovery, they do need like surgeries and stuff like that. Like I said, when I came out of treatment, I had oral surgery, but I let them know that I was in recovery. Like, please do not prescribe me opioids. I will tough it out. And I think they prescribed me like tramadol or something small like that for pain. But I am a person like everybody's recovery journey is different, but I'm a person that cannot take narcotic pain medicine. So I
Hmm.
will always say that if I ever have any kind of pain, I will always tell the doctors I cannot do narcotic pain medicine. However, there are people that do it, but they do it under a doctor's care and they do it carefully. So
Hmm.
I just use ibuprofen, and it's crazy how well ibuprofen works when you're no longer in active addiction. It works well for me.
Yeah, so it does work. That's true.
Mhm.
This is my final question for you.
Okay.
What words of encouragement would you give to someone in the throes of their addiction?
Oh, okay. This is a question I would like to read from my book.
Okay.
The answer on page 94, it's basically in my epilogue. To anyone who finds themselves reading these pages, I want you to know that you are not alone. Whether you're in the thick of it or you've just started your journey, know that there is a way out. It won't be easy and it might not happen all at once, but with time, support, and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truths, you can heal. You are worthy of recovery, you are worthy of happiness, and you are worthy of love, especially from yourself. And just give yourself grace. Give yourself grace.
I love that. Part two of that question. What words of hope would you give to their loved ones?
Okay. For the loved ones, that's a little more tricky. I know that addiction can make you feel like the person that you love is gone, but I promise you that they're still in there and there's still a part of them that wants to be free. And just addiction is loud, but love is louder. And just keep letting them know that you love them. Let them know that they are worthy of recovery and let them know that you're just there whenever they need you.
That's good. I thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk about it. For my listeners, I'm going to link the book that you can purchase on Amazon. It's a quick read, but it's definitely a good one. And I thank you for your obedience, right? I think there's power in our testimony. I have a girlfriend who always says everyone has a book in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you for being obedient and putting your book into the world because I think it's going to bless some people. And I think it's going to give some people some hope and perspective. So I thank you. Thank you for your time. I love it.
And I thank you so much for having me on here and for just giving me this platform so that I could talk about my book and be more open to helping others as well in their journey to recovery and redemption.
Amen. Let's do it. So, to my listeners, thank you for listening. Catch the next one. Thank you.